pretty much invisible kata. Like, I'd never see it. You know, every now and then I'll see like the uranage portion of the nage no kata like pop up my Instagram, and then it's at some competition. But like, I really don't know what USA Judo is doing with kata stuff. So, you know, yeah, definitely underrepresented. You know,
they're going to keep him for the next year, and then we'll see what happens after that. Yeah, I believe it was 12 months.
Oh, so it's already been decided. It's already been decided. Yeah. And what are the contingencies? I would hope, right? After, hey man, you said you're going to raise $4 million, you didn't. Now you got to raise $1 million in the next 6 months, or you're out. Like, do you guys have a very strict contingency? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Shintaro Higashi Show with Peter Yu. Today, we have a very, very special guest. We have Matthew Parker here, behind the scenes, running all the stuff on all these different communities and all the stuff USA Judo back end. We competed around the same time together, right behind, what was it, around 2004, 2005, did you say?
Yeah, so I was a junior in that time frame, and then I kind of, at my peak, I was around 2012, 2011, and I retired right after that because of injuries.
Yeah, and you were on the international circuit, so that's an amazing feat. So you're a very accomplished judoka. You fought 73?
73 kilos, yeah.
And how much do you weigh now, 90?
Yes, I do. I weigh about 90 kilos. It's spot on.
It was funny, man. The 73 guys are like, yeah, I'm 73. It's like, no, you're not. You're 200 pounds. And it's like, well, I used to fight 73, so I just say 73. It's like, no, you're 200 pounds.
Yeah. I'm no longer 73. You'd have to cut off a leg for me to get back to
73. Yeah. You don't want to do it anymore? Cutting weight?
No, I do not want to cut. When I compete in BJJ, I literally just weigh in as I weigh in. I've done the competition thing, and I'm good. I've had my fulfillment, and I weigh in as I weigh in. And
then you have a dojo out in Colorado, correct?
Yeah, it's a small club. I teach out of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym.
Nice, awesome. And you do jiu-jitsu yourself?
I do, yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not good at it, but I do it.
You know what? When you're a judoka and you go to the ground and you got to learn all these new things like the spider grips and stuff like that, and it's like, it's definitely a different sport, but it's very similar, you know?
Well, what I found is really cool is, you know, when I started learning BJJ and improving my groundwork, you know, I had a Jujikatami, and I had some turnovers when I was a kid, but nothing like BJJ, right? Obviously, it's very different. Yeah. But what I have found that's really cool is I'm able to share the same martial art with BJJ practitioners as judoka, and I think it's pretty cool that I can help them in the stand up, and they obviously help me in the ground, and it's a complete art when you look at it that way.
Oh yeah, it really is. It really is. You know, different rule sets kind of take you to different places, and you get to do some niche training in these specific places. It's awesome. So you're here today because you're so involved with USA Judo, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole about trying to interview all the people who are on the board. Are you currently on the board now, or are you running for a position on the board?
I am running for a position at the board. The position I'm running for is at large. So at large, it's a position that anybody can vote for.
Awesome. And so who is running for that position?
So there's, I believe, 5 individuals, generally pretty older generations. And then there's me. Let's see who is running. Looks like there is a Jerry Cypret, Gary Goltz, Hector Lons, Eric Sanchez, and myself.
Interesting. Oh, and isn't Grace Jivinen also?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Grace Jivinen is also running for it? Did I mishear that from somebody?
Grace?
Yeah.
Let me take a look.
Yeah.
I don't see Grace on the board, but I think Grace was. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Grace
so there's 5 people
on the website anyway.
Okay, so there's 5 people running for one slot.
That's correct.
Who would you say if we were to have like a poll, like a national poll, like they do in the real, like not real election, but the American presidential election? They have a poll, right? Oh, this guy is popular. That guy's thing in first place. Who do you say the top 2?
For the at-large?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of Jerry. You know, obviously myself. I think I'm biased on that, but I like Jerry. I think Jerry's got a good background. I think he's a strong candidate. I like his post. I think the similarities between Jerry and I compared to the rest of the members that are on the board or are being elected. we try, like on our statements, we try to say like, hey, I'm really here for you. Like these are things that I'm trying to accomplish, but ultimately the at-large director is responsible for the voice of the body of USA Judo. So that's not just elites. That's elites. That's paras. That's kata. That's veterans, and every other like kind of sub thing that USA Judo does, like the P3 program.
But you're on some committees already, so you're not completely new to like the politics of USA Judo behind closed doors. Because you said briefly that you already represent a certain group.
Yes. So I am both the chair and the veterans representative on the athlete advisory committee that was created a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And so that role encompasses like we are the voice of the athletes to the board. So if there's some areas of opportunity for athletes to engage with improvement, or they have ideas or suggestions, they come to us, and then we go to USA Judo and the board and say, hey, here's our recommendation based off of what athletes are saying to us.
Yeah.
And so it's another way to get athlete representation and ensuring that athletes' rights are being met within board decisions.
So if we're like, all right, we need a brown belt division for the Masters Nationals, we need a purple belt division for the Masters Nationals, like we come to you and then you voice that to the group?
Yeah, so you can definitely come to us and we'll listen and have your best interest. I will say that the AAC is specifically linked towards the high competitive side. So even like we have a kata representative, and kata is looking at like how kata competitions are ran and what that how that impacts USA Judo. It's a smaller sect of USA Judo, but there's still a representative on that side.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much invisible kata. Like I'd never see it. Every now and then I'll see like the uranage portion of the nage no kata like pop up my Instagram. And then it's at some competition, but like I really don't know what USA Judo is doing with kata stuff. So, definitely underrepresented. Hopefully, right, those guys can kind of pick it up. How about Hector?
I think it's Hector. I don't personally know Hector. I will say the one interaction I've had with Hector is the recent USA Judo board and board meeting, excuse me, and the board stated in the beginning of like, hey, this is not an open forum. You are just to listen. And they stated that multiple times. And then Hector chimed in during the board meeting, and he was trying to get his voice heard. Yeah. And I totally understand kind of that perspective. But I also was like, hey, man, like this is not the place or the time for that. So I don't know Hector personally.
Okay, yeah, because I had Jimmy Pedro, so I'm doing my rounds now. I'm trying to interview all these people. And then, I do have certain, like, I trained with Jimmy, I trained with Travis. I'm much more familiar with those guys, but I try to kind of get everyone's perspective on this thing, But having Jimmy on, he was like, yeah, Hector's kind of my guy. And, like, he's like, I definitely endorse you guys to vote for him and stuff like that. So I'm familiar with Hector. What are some of your main things when as you're running for this thing?
Yeah, so I'm a financial guy by trade, right? Like I joked about what pays the bills, and I'm a financial professional. So the first thing and foremost is I want to see more attempts to get fundraising and sponsorships, and that helps grow USA Judo. Like there are organizations out there that literally have a position within their NGB that is just to get sponsorships or just to get fundraising. And we are not doing that as USA Judo. And I think that's a big issue and hole that we could fill, especially leading into LA 28 and how we can engage different communities for USA Judo. So that's my biggest idea and platform. The other thing is communication. I think that, and I think a lot of people say, oh, communication is ill, or there's problems with communication and transparency with USA Judo, which I don't disagree. And so if I were to be elected, I would make sure as the at-large director, I'm providing updates after every board meeting, anything that I can share publicly.
How are you going to do that? Like on Instagram or something?
Yeah, so I plan to use social media to update my followers and let them know what's going on within USA Judo, and then that also allows feedback to me, right, as the representative of USA Judo.
True, yeah. There's a comment section, that people write on. I don't know if you're on Judo Reddit, but man, there's a lot of feedback there, constructive or not.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just complaints just to complain, which okay.
Yeah, well, do something. You could vote now, right?
Yeah,
vote, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's
so cool.
So that's that. And then my third is really focusing on coaches and athlete development. So we have representation for the elites, the athlete representatives like Colton and Nicole and Marty and Ben, right? Those are the four athlete representatives. And so my idea is to say, okay, well, what about the rest of the community as well on top of the elites? So veterans are a big deal to me personally. I'm an old man now, so I'm in the veterans community. And veterans, if you look at it on an international scale, it's huge. If you look at veterans, France, they send teams of people. And I think USA Judo has a unique opportunity this year because the World Championships are in Las Vegas. And how often is a World Championship in our backyard? So I think that's something that I would be like, hey, let's take advantage of this. And I'm already trying to do that kind of stuff.
I heard like the IJF Veterans World is, I'm going to that as a commentator for the IJF, but like I heard like USA Judo didn't have that much of a hand in like organizing the stuff. I mean, I don't know what that means even, someone was like, we didn't really do much to kind of capitalize on any of it. We didn't really promote it. And then I'm like, that's kind of unfortunate, but maybe if it happens again, we definitely want to put our best foot forward and kind of make it a marketing thing, right?
I've actually talked to USA Judo marketing, and
was that Nicole Jamantis?
No, it was Bill and Hannah.
Okay, all right.
So there's newer representatives within USA Judo, the NGB, for marketing. They hired a guy named Bill. From another NGB, so he's got marketing experience through NGBs, and then Hannah is also going to be the social media expert that we have. And when I went to a veterans tournament recently, and I was talking to the guys that run Veterans Judo USA, I was like, hey, so like what support do you get? What support you do not get from USA Judo? And they were candid with me. They were like, we don't get any support. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. What do you want? Right. Like I'm happy to engage, right, as the AAC rep. And they said, well, first we'd like to have social media representation. It's like, okay, great. Happy to talk through that. And so we did. And then I went back to USA Judo. Keith said, yeah, I'm on board. Let's make sure they have representation. And then I got our Veterans Judo USA guys introduced to Bill and Hannah to engage in that.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go back to the financial stuff, right? So you said you have a background in finance. Like, what in finance do you do?
I'm a wealth advisor, so I'm a certified financial planner, and I help both small business owners and I would say you can use the word affluent, but it's individuals that need help with tax planning, estate planning. Investment planning, whatever.
Good. Okay. So you kind of understand money. That's always a good thing if you're trying to raise money. So like, what is the goal? Like how much we need to raise and how are you going to do it as opposed to the next guy?
Yeah. So I think as the at-large director, my role is not to raise the money. My role is to make sure the board is on board for getting somebody within our organization or having a consultant explain to us like, okay, this is how you do it. Because clearly we haven't done very well. Like I think Keith, as an example, said in the beginning, when he first got hired 8 years ago, he said, I'm going to raise $4 million in the first couple of years. And then there was COVID and there was other things. And he didn't raise that money. However, kudos where kudos are due. He did clean up the books. So we were in the red as an organization, and then now we're in the black. So
so that's a positive thing about Keith that I, haven't heard yet. So that's kind of a big one. Wow. Okay. So he was going to raise $4 million. How much has he raised?
I'm not entirely sure how much he's raised to date. I have no idea. That's for the audit committee to look at and make decisions on.
So you're at large position on the board. You have one vote out of 12. Keep Keith or not keep Keith?
So the most recent board member meeting it was keep Keith. They're going to keep him for the next year, and then we'll see what happens after that. Yeah, I believe it was 12 months.
Oh, so it's already been decided. It's already been decided. Yeah. So he renewed his contract for 6 months to 1 year. And what are the contingencies? I would hope, right? After, hey man, you said you're going to raise $4 million, you didn't. Now you got to raise $1 million in the next 6 months, or you're out. Like, do you guys have a very strict contingency?
Yeah, they didn't publicly share what the contingency was on the board meeting. All they said was that we have elected to renew, and there was a public vote just to show of who's yay, who's nay. And most of the board members said yay because there was some negotiation in a closed session that I was not part of, that they said, should we keep Keith or should we not keep Keith? And the decision was to keep Keith for X amount of months. And
Nicole probably didn't want Keith to stick around. She's very vocal about that.
I'm pretty sure she voted nay.
Yeah, because I did interview her last night, and she's had very interesting things to say. So, okay, so what are some of your positions? Like, there's certain, like, groups, right? Like, these guys train together. These guys come from the same club. Do you have any, like, alliances on the board, sort of, that you kind of like, all right, this is my thing. I'm going to influence these guys, and then we're going to get this thing done.
I actually don't, and I'm pretty, like, I get along with everybody kind of deal. I was at when I was at my peak and training, I was at the Olympic Training Center, and there's no more Olympic Training Center. And somebody, was like, "Oh, so you're an ed guy?" And I'm like, "Well, not really."
Like, OTC's Ed Liddy.
Yeah. And so, I love Ed as an individual, but there were things that he did that I disagree with, and I think that there's an area of opportunity for him to improve as well. And I love him. Like, I have a relationship with Ed. That doesn't mean I can't provide constructive criticism to those that I love, But
Ed's not like in the board meetings, like, "Hey man, guys, do this, do that," right? He's not on the board.
No,
right?
I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Sorry, I apologize.
No, go.
Yeah, I don't know what his plans are for high performance is, and I think that's a transparency issue between USA Judo and the community of what's going on. Yeah. And so that's something I would like to see improved.
Yeah, I think one of the things people are talking about, like how the cadet team coach, junior team coach, the senior team coach, and then the development throughout, and then like the coaching thing, and then the high performance, like they're all kind of like separated and then like operating sort of independently of each other. Some people are really pushing for, like, we need to make this whole thing like a united forefront of like pushing the best judokas out into the world from the US and growing this thing. Like, do you have any ideas like that? I'm sure you're not going to disagree with that. We are very fragmented. I think everybody's on the same page. What would be your plan to kind of unify things from within?
I think it's creating a system. So I've called a bunch of coaches and I've talked to a bunch of athletes. I'm lobbying here. Like I stepped away from judo for a while and now I'm back, and I've been back for the past few years now, but I'm trying to understand where the body of USA Judo is with development and systems and ideologies. And I think the number one complaint that I'm seeing is there's a lack of system development in place. So like the coaching development, right? Pat Burris has been running the coaching thing for many, many years. And I've seen some coaches that say, "Hey, I want to see an update in the coaching curriculum. I want to see some development for us." If you compare USA Judo to some of our international counterparts, our coaching development is pretty weak comparatively. And then I also think the system of going from juniors to seniors, like cadets to that senior ranks, is also there's like a drop off and there's a miscommunication on how you develop those athletes between those two major programs. And so I'd like to see a system put in place for going from grassroots all the way to the Olympic and Paralympic movement. And I don't think we quite have one. I think it's been piecemealed. And so
for sure.
My idea is to create a system within USA Judo. And so I have a rough idea of what I'd like to see. Now, what I'd like to see and what is realistic because of those bigger programs that say, oh, we want to be, the club, or we want money for XYZ, or we want to promote a different athlete or whatever. Thinking of those big programs because they have power, right? And so I think going through the programs and communicating and saying, okay, how do we approach this as a unified USA Judo, not you're just a national training center or you're a regional training center or whatever.
Interesting. All right. So as a person running for a position, can you vote also for the other positions or no?
So no, if you meet the criteria, you can. So if you're a certified coach or if you're a 10-year athlete, you can register to vote for those specific slots.
Yeah.
If you are 18 years or older in USA Judo, then you can vote for the at-large. So there's really only 3 spots that you can vote for. So that because the independent's selected by the governance body.
Okay, so there's only that's interesting. 3 slots. So, but can you vote as an athlete's position?
I am no longer a 10-year athlete, so I'm outside of that window.
But you're a coach?
No, I don't. I don't actually have my certification for USA Judo. So
so you can't vote at all.
My athletes, I do not vote. Yeah, I vote for the at-large. My athletes within my judo program, they've competed at some local stuff, but they're BJJ practitioners, right?
So you're not going to vote. You can't vote, right? You don't qualify for those categories. Got it. So, okay. If you were to vote, though, for the athlete's representative spot, who would you vote for and why? This is a tough question. I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat, but, I interviewed Colton. I interviewed Nicole. I'm waiting on Marty to get back to me, and I'm very curious because I kind of see both sides and where they are. So I'm kind of curious to see where you're aligned.
Yeah, so I do like Marty Malloy. I think Marty Malloy is a stronger candidate. I've seen what she's done in the background. I work with her on the AAC, and that's not like saying...
What is AAC? I should have probably asked that earlier, but what is AAC? I don't know what
Athlete Advisory Committee.
Okay, got it.
And so, like, I see how she works. I see how she works with others. And Marty and I disagree a handful of times. I'm not saying we're always off base with each other, but we have disagreements. And when we have disagreements, we communicate and say, okay, well, how do we get over this? Like, what's the right call for the picture that we're trying to achieve today, right? And so I really like how Marty works as a professional, and I think that's phenomenal. And then on top of that, she's been there and done it, right? Like she knows what it's like to be the top of the dogs, and I think she's phenomenal. From a second person, I think Angelica Delgado is a strong candidate. I think she's got a unique take on it, and I would like to see what her thoughts are on how we grow USA Judo. I think Hannah Martin is also a good candidate. I think she does a good job with what she's done, and she was over at Europe, and so she has a completely different system that she was part of over in Europe. So maybe she can bring some ideas over to us. So I think those are the two that I would kind of toss up for my second one. I don't have a specific election point. Let's say, hey, I would definitely vote for this person or that person.
Gotcha.
I think Marty is the only one that I'm definitive on.
Okay.
I think Nicole brings good ideas. Right? Yeah. I think she's polarizing, but I think that she is passionate, and she brings good ideas to the table and says, okay, how do we accomplish this? Now, sometimes I disagree with her, but I think she's done a great job at being communicative with the community and being engaging. And I think that's huge for the board of directors. So I wouldn't throw her out of the equation either.
No, I mean, this is the whole reason on how I got started on this was because Nicole was on Instagram saying, get rid of Keith Bryan, you didn't raise any money, do this, do that. And then I was like, you know what? This is good. Because you know, I like this. What's going on behind closed doors? I don't really know. And then she's like, Keith's contract up, and these are the board members, and we got to do something, and you can make the change. And I was like, you know, like, all right, let me look into this a little bit. And then I spoke to Chris Round, and then now all of a sudden I'm deep diving into this world of USA Judo. I identify as a journalist now, not just a YouTuber. So like, it's like this whole thing. So I did like that. And then, you know, having my conversation with her, she was like, hey, you know, we got to follow the rules, the bylaws. And yeah, the bylaws aren't perfect, but like, you know, conflict of interest was one of the biggest issues that she has with the people on the board. Like, I mean, you seem so far, you have zero conflict of interest. What do you think about the people who have sort of a little bit of a conflict? Maybe they have a contract with the USA Judo where there's money being funneled into their private businesses. You know, like, what do you think about that?
I think that we have a committee that is supposed to look at conflict of interest and grievances. If we use that internal system and say, okay, you know, XYZ person has a conflict, can we clear this? And if they say no, we can't clear it, then we should not clear it, that conflict of interest, right? For the best of USA Judo. So I think that there's a system in place to do it. Now, whether we utilize that system or not is a different question. Yeah,
because sometimes, you know, all your boys are on the board and it's like, hey, man, do this thing for me. And guys, one hand washes all we all just looked all the way. Like, you know, that happens not, you know, it happens everywhere. So it's like,
everywhere.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So
it's not unique to us.
No, definitely not. So it's like, you know, yeah, but you don't have a conflict of interest.
No, I really don't. I'm pretty neutral as far as like what training sites. I get along with almost everybody. I see the financials and I'm like, okay, this is how I would think about it, right? Like, I really do think I am biased, obviously, but I really do think I am a good fit for the at-large director, and specifically what the at-large director is supposed to achieve.
Yeah. So how does one? What was I going to say? Yeah. So what do you think the current state of USA Judo's financials look like? Because you clearly understand P&L and like looking at. I mean, it's not, you know, 10K or anything like that, but like you understand these financial reports. Like when you look at it, take a snapshot view of it, you're like, good, bad, ugly. Like, what do you think? I mean, someone told me 80% of the budget comes from the Olympic Committee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
is it the USOC? Comes from the USOC.
USOPC, yeah.
Okay. What's the P stand for?
Oh, Paralympics.
Oh, so Olympic, Paralympic.
A while ago, maybe one cycle, two cycles ago, they moved from the USOC to the USOPC for more inclusivity.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Some consultant got paid a lot of money for that, you know?
Like the consultant in New York was like, hey, if you use trash cans, it'll help your trash collection. Like, okay, thanks for that. You got paid a lot of money to do that. Anyway, so you asked about financials and what do I think? So the problem, I can give opinions, but the problem is on the USA Judo website is 2002 or 2022 financials. So they don't have the most recent stuff. So if I were to get elected, I would want to sit on the audit or the audit committee board to see the up-to-date financials. I think from a holistic, the way I'm talking to coaches, the kind of what I've seen, there were some upset coaches when we, USA Judo specifically, purchased the American Judo system. And there was trying to be development there, and we spent, I think it was $1 million on it. And there was some hesitancy or some opponents on saying, why are we spending this money there? Shouldn't it go to the athletes, right?
So USA Judo spent $1 million on the American Judo system that Jimmy Pedro and those guys made.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. $1 million.
I'm not going to say it's not a lot of money. It is a lot of money, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure. Okay, so a lot of money is kind of like this relative thing. Maybe they freaking put $2 million in there and they're taking a loss and they're doing us a favor. We don't really know, right? But you know, $1 million considering our annual budget. Yeah, sorry. Considering our annual budget is $800,000, correct?
Right.
That's a big portion of our annual budget. You know, maybe their terms. Do they have terms? Or is it
What I don't know, we'll see. I think they just flat out purchased it, right? So it's now their system. It's still the American Judo system, but USA Judo has full access to it. At moving forward, I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's like for X amount of years. I could be wrong on that. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know specifically.
Yeah.
That being said, I think that there was some hesitancy or some challenges to spending that money. And what I don't know is how did they budget? How did they allocate? How much did they fundraise for this? Right? Where did they get this money specifically? And I think that is more of a question that I would like to know, like the more intricate stuff, because that stuff matters.
So the board had to decide on a vote to buy this thing or no?
I don't know. I don't know if it was as Keith's role to say we're purchasing this as CEO, or if the board of directors voted on it and said yes. I would assume, based off of how boards work and the CEO runs, the CEO would have made that decision.
Interesting. So a guy who couldn't raise $4 million, who's on a shoestring budget in the USA Judo of $800,000 a year, was like, I'm going to buy this thing for $1 million.
Again, I don't know if they had specifically put money away in the budget over multiple years and said, okay, well, we need this for an investment, right? Like, and
we don't know if it's if there's terms, right? Maybe it's like, all right, man, we'll give you a percentage of the membership fee over the course of the next 20 years. Who knows? No one knows, right? That's a different price than it is. Here's $1 million liquid cash, take it. Those two are very different things. Interesting. Okay, so Jimmy Pedro's running for a board slot. Do you think there's a conflict there or no?
I think that any coach that has a national training site or a bigger program in the U.S., of course, they have a conflict of interest because they're going to want to funnel money into their systems. Now, does that mean that their conflict should stop them from being on the board? Not inherently, right? Like, how do they work as an individual? How do they work as a professional and say, okay, even taking myself out of this situation and saying I am going to recuse myself from this vote because I have a conflict, or I am going to take my best interest and put it on the side, and I'm going to vote for the greater of USA Judo. If a coach like Jimmy Pedro can do that, then I have no problem with them being on the board. And I think that's part of what coaches need to understand when talking to the coach representative, and athletes need to talk about with the athlete representative, and then the board, the body for the at-large.
Interesting. All right, so what are some current issues right now going on that you were like, all right, if I'm in there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change that? For instance, like the thing that just kind of recently happened was Joe Reagan, who I'm going to have a conversation with, also got removed from the board because of a conflict, correct?
That's
because
right.
it's a technicality, sort of, right?
Well, I don't know the full story, but I will share what I do know. So
I like that.
My understanding of the Joe Reagan situation is that Joe was the independent representative on the board, and from a governing body standpoint, a independent should not have any relation to that specific sport or specific governing body, right? So you shouldn't be a judoka if you are on the board as an independent representative. It is supposed to be completely removed from the sport to say, I am truly a neutral voice here. I'm just here to help, right? Now, a smaller NGB like judo, that may be harder to get, right?
Yeah.
Joe Reagan was, I believe he was a certified coach through USA Judo, and I forget what dan he is, but he's fourth or fifth dan, right? So he is a judoka, and as a independent, I don't think he was eligible to be there. Yeah. Looking at it neutrally, right? Like I think from a how a governing body works, I don't think that he was supposed to be there, and that's what the USOPC found too. And so he's no longer on the board. Now he's running as a group director, And if he gets elected as a group director, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so he's running right now as a group director.
Yeah, let me make sure. Let's see here. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's running against Jason Morris.
Oh, that makes it even more interesting. I didn't know he was running for a group director.
Yeah.
Wow. So he off as an independent, but was there enough time for him to be a viable candidate and run for this election? Because he just got off the board last week.
Yeah. I think he's got a constituent following. I think that he'll get some votes. I don't know. I think it's going to be. I think to me that's the most interesting race, the group director between Joe Reagan and Jason Morris. Because
who'd you vote for that?
Oof.
And why? Man, I should just be a journalist. That's what I should. Forget me teaching judo moves. I should just go around and be like, Kamala, what do you think? Biden, what's going on? I should like just do the debate. You know, I'll fact check both of them.
You know.
Oh, this is juicy, man.
I might vote for. I
might clip this portion just for the reel, just so you know. Just so I don't really decide. My guy decides. So, all right, let's see.
I think I would vote for Jason Morris because I think Jimmy Pedro is going to get elected, and I think having two high prolific coaches on the board at the same time would be helpful for USA Judo. And I also think that would help with conflict of interest as well.
Interesting. Man, that really is the most. Okay, so who gets to vote for the Group B? It's every state president, right? Like New York State Judo gets one vote. Wisconsin Judo gets one vote.
There's like 25 organizations or state organizations that get to vote. I don't know why there's not all 50. I'm not sure on why. I try to get clarification from Keith,
I mean, some dojos some states don't have a lot of judo, so it's like, all right, let's just bundle these 3 states together into one organization. You know, I get that, right? So all right. So the president of the state gets
what it is our governing or our voting committee will send out the organization. So let's say Texas Judo, right? They'll send out a email to Texas Judo and they'll say, please select one representative to represent Texas Judo to vote. And so that individual will register as the group voter.
Well, Jason Moore is pretty involved in New York State Judo, so he's probably going to get that vote from New York,
I would assume.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that Pedro is the same way.
It's kind of like if you're a Republican and you vote in New York, nothing's going to happen. It doesn't matter because, it's a very democratic blue state. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. Right? It's kind of, man, it's so interesting. And then, so there's only 25 votes for Group B.
Yeah, I think it's like 25, maybe up to 30, but it's right around that number.
Wow. All right. So for the people who are listening, right, this is kind of for your own thing. Matt Parker, what has he done so far, behind the scenes? How can we know, like, he's going to do some certain things, behind the scenes when he is in there, or if he's in there? What would you say to that? Like, these are the things I've done for you guys,
Yeah, so I think that my advocation, from my personal life, I'm not shy to share what my opinion is and answer questions. And I am passionate about judo. I think that USA Judo is in a rough spot right now, and I think that I am able to assist with that. Can I fix it all as a one director? No, but I do think I am because I have zero conflict of interest, and I am going in with a perspective of I want to work with everybody, not just one side of the thing. I think I can help mend some of the relationships within USA Judo. I also think that from a communication standpoint, if you look at the statements that are made on USA Judo, I think I have the strongest statement that's saying, hey, I'm here for you, not this is what I've accomplished.
Yeah.
And so I actually put down on my statement, like, hey, I would like to bring a sponsorship individual in and help raise money for athletes. And I also want to create a development system for athletes and coaches, where most of the other statements for the at-large director is saying, I've done judo since 19X, right? And these are the accomplishments I have. I listed my accomplishments in very, very high level, right? Like I said, I was a former national team member, and I'm the current chair of USA Judo AAC, right? And so I communicate with people. I've picked up the phone and I've called different organizations and dojos, and I've asked for feedback for me, right? Like I was an athlete. I can be coached if I'm saying something, or if you don't like something and you want to build on it. I'm all ears. I don't have all the answers. I do have the passion to make something happen, though.
How do people find you?
So you can find me at Instagram. Matthew Cray USA is what my Instagram handle
Matthew
is.
What?
Cray, Cray. Yeah.
Nice. Love it. Okay.
It's not cray. So my dad was a nerd, and Cray Supercomputers is.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a nice one. All right, guys. If you're listening, thank you, Drew, Jason, and Levon for sponsoring the show. JudoTV.com for all your IJF high-level judo needs. It gets streamed. It gets commentated. It's amazing. Use discount code Shintaro, HigashiBrand.com. Matthew, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Great. Best of luck to you. And everyone listen on. You got to vote. Okay, registration closes the 27th. So by the time this airs, we kind of got a late start on the whole thing. But I'm sure if you've already registered to vote, now we have heard from a lot of these candidates, and you can make a much more informed decision. That was the goal of this whole thing. Thank you very much. One more word from you, Mr. Parker. Anything?
Just from taking myself out of all of this, I'm a big fan of your show, so thank you for having me.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I can't wait to see the other interviews that you're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, and then from now on, if you're a board member, you come back. I guess what this guy said at the board meeting.
I got you. Hey,
that was a campaign promise, by the way.
Hey,
so
actually, if you want to commit to something like that, I'm not putting you on the spot right here, right? But as part of communication and as part of my goal for the at-large director is to say, hey, these are what's going on. And I think you've got a great platform. So if you ever want to have me
for sure, man. I've offered my services multiple times to the people, at USA Judo. Hey, man, look, this social media thing. Hey, let me, there's 500,000 people listening in on across all my platforms, whether it's a YouTube podcast, Apple, Spotify podcast, Instagram, 500 eyeballs per month. That's crazy. 500,000 I'm talking about. Yeah. I was like, can't you guys, whatever you guys want to put out there, I'll help you. They're like, you know what, Higashi,
I actually think,
I'm like, come on, this is a huge place to be able to help grow judo here domestically. Let me help you guys. And it's like, nah, we're good. So it's like, I don't love how that was handled at all. Obviously there's a monetary incentive for me too. Like I'm not doing it for free,
They should absolutely take advantage of you, dude. You have a massive platform, and for BJJ athletes that are listening in, right? I think there's a huge community within grappling that we can engage with, right? And we technically have a cross membership with BJJ, but I don't even know what that means. And so I think there's an opportunity that we could say, hey, here's some things that we could do for the BJJ community and grow USA Judo through that venue too. And I just don't think that we're doing it.
I don't mean to keep you on too long, but I'm sure you have a 10 a.m. call. But, so USA Judo membership versus IBJJF membership. IBJJF membership, there's no insurance. USA Judo membership acts as insurance. So if you're a registered club, and then every member in that room is a registered member of USA Judo, that person breaks a leg, there's insurance covering, right? This liability thing there. You know what I mean? But if there's a USA Judo / BJJ cross membership, and then now all of a sudden that jiu-jitsu gym has membership, something happens, right? That's a very, very good benefit that's wrapped in with the membership that we don't really know about. How many people have filed a claim? What is the benefit of USA Judo? And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like
the insurance is really interesting. I know that's a component, but I don't know many people that have gotten benefit from that.
Yeah, I know a few people. No,
Do you? Okay, that's great. I personally don't. Right, even when I was looking at, when I was training with individuals that made teams, and I was on the international circuit. Right, like I got hurt, and I tried to talk to USA Judo about, what that insurance is, and I think there has to be very specific criteria to be met to use that insurance.
Interesting.
Interesting. I don't know what that is. I'd be interested to learn more about it.
Yeah.
To be frank with you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Matt. And then best of luck. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Shintaro, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.